Get Some Fantasy Football Podcast, hosted by two-time Bundy champion Andrew Lovick.
And when I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
You like that? You like that?
You know, I don't pay her to service you. I pay her to service baby Jeffrey, who is now forever unclean.
Here is such a struggle.
Were you here last year?
Well, last year we lost the previous
Yeah,
one.
so look, every game's its own game, okay? I mean, I don't think what happened 5 years ago has anything to do with tonight.
What's up, League? It's your boy Andrew, two-time Bundy champion, coming at you from the Get Some Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by Budweiser, King of Beers. Today we're going to talk about quite a few things. We're going to go over the draft order. We're going to talk about notable injuries. We're also going to talk about some holdouts, man, because boy, it's getting crazy out there. Football is back, baby, and I'm fucking excited, and I can't wait to kick this thing off with you guys on the Get Some Fantasy Football Podcast, where we're going to have a lot of fun. Fuck you, Brad and Stu. My podcast is better. Now let's get to it. All right, time to get into draft order. I know you guys have been anxious and been wanting to know what we're going to do. So here it is. We're going to play Nintendo 64 to determine draft order. We're going to have a double elimination seed round. And in order to determine seeds, we're going to have to play one of the worst rated Nintendo 64 games out there called Nagano Winter Olympics 64. We're going to bobsled. You have 3 runs to get your best time, and whoever has the best time is seed 1 all the way down through seed 12. That'll be how we're filling out the double elimination tournament bracket. From there, in your bracket, you will have to decide who will spin the Wheel of Games. The Wheel of Games will have 5 Nintendo 64 games on it, varying, so you could play one game in one bracket seed and another game in another bracket seed. I won't divulge what games there are because I'm still working on that, but it's going to be a double elimination Nintendo 64 Battle Royale. We do have champions, 4 guys who won't be there, and we have secondary champions in case we have to play, that person has to play the person who is their champion. It's going to be a fun night, Friday night. We'll get our draft order decided, and then from there, you can mock draft all night long to figure out who you're going to take, but it's not really going to fucking matter because someone's going to take someone that doesn't need to go there at all. It's the way it happens every single time. No amount of preparation can really do anything for you because our league is fucking weird. But that's what makes it fun, and that's what makes it great. Next up, I want to get into some holdouts. Guys wants to get paid. First guy who wants to get paid is Melvin Gordon. 175 carries, 885 yards, 5.1 average yard per carry, and 10 TDs for the 2018 season. He has said that he wants to hold out and sit out for the season unless he gets paid. Now, I think it's a terrible fucking idea for him to do that, first of all, because let's look at Zeke's numbers, who is also holding out right now. 304 carries compared to Melvin's 175. 1,434 yards to Melvin's 885. And 4.7 average and 6 TDs. Well, look, you can just tell by the carries and the yards that he's their fucking bell cow and they're going to pay Zeke, and it's not going to be a big deal. Melvin Gordon, not so much. He's injury prone. He's a little older. I think he's trying to get too much too soon, and he's doing it on a supposed playoff cusp of the pinnacle of Phillips' career, and it's not looking good for him in the locker room. Austin Eckler currently sitting behind Melvin Gordon, 106 carries, 554 yards last season, 5.2 average a carry with 3 touchdowns. And Justin Jackson sitting in the third spot, 50 carries, 206 yards, 4.1 per average carry, and 2 TDs. A lot of discussion online of trying to decide who's going to be the guy moving forward. I think it's going to be Eckler, but really I think it'll be more of like a 1-2 punch like Tevin and Devontae in Atlanta, because neither one of those guys are really built just to be a bell cow. So finding out who the Bolts' number 1 guy is for running back is going to be tough. Next up, we have Michael Thomas holding out for some extra money. I don't blame him, though. 125 receptions, 1,405 receiving yards, and 9 touchdowns last season. He was the top wide receiver for 2018 in the NFL. And by the numbers, the closest one next to him was Zach Ertz, followed by DeAndre Hopkins. The man deserves to get paid. He is the epitome of the New Orleans offense, and I think he will get his money. I think they're just close on a deal there, and he'll be good. We also mentioned Zeke, how he's holding out, but like I said earlier, I think he's going to get paid. It's not going to be a big deal. One that's really interesting that I know Brad's watching closely is Jadeveon Clowney. He's seeking a long-term deal. He could sign outside of Houston, which would be interesting. I know that the defense really, really likes having him on the team, and so does Watt liking having him there. If he signs his tag, it'd be nearly $16 million. But, he's looking for that long-term contract. So there's a lot of teams out there that would love to have a guy like Jadeveon Clowney on the end there. So that'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward with that. Sorry, Brad. All right, moving on. Let's talk about some notable injuries. For the guys who aren't paying attention, listen up very closely. A.J. Green, torn ligaments, out for 6 to 8 weeks. That's another big hit to, I feel so bad for the guy. A guy who helped me win the league a couple years ago, and now he's out for the count every single time. And even when he comes back, it's probably going to be hard for him to bounce back totally. This does, in my opinion, hurt Joe Mixon's draft stock. It hurts Tyler Boyd's. I think it hurts the Bengals completely. Who's going to be that guy that steps up? Is it going to be Boyd? He did sign that big deal, so we'll see. Derrick Henry also reported dealing with an undisclosed issue. Well, that sucks, but I feel like the Tennessee Titans will be a dumpster fire this season anyway, so we'll see. It just means Deion Lewis is going to be the guy if it's something he can't get over. Interesting to note, Damian Williams and Jordan Lucas left practice with hamstring issues. It'll be interesting to see if they'll be able to shake that and get 100% for the start of the season. Damian Williams, if you don't know, is supposedly the man who's stepping into Kareem Hunt's shoes in Kansas City. So we'll see if he can. He did show a lot of promise last season when Kareem Hunt was suspended. So he's on a lot of people's radar, so keep an eye out on him. Now let's talk about that awesome receiving core at New York. The Giants, first off, they trade OBJ to the Browns. Second, Golden Tate gets suspended for 4 games for taking a fertility drug. Then you got Corey Coleman tearing his ACL and Sterling Shepard fracturing his thumb. It's not looking good for the rookie quarterback, and it's not looking good for Eli. I feel so bad for Saquon. Having to carry that team on his back, it's going to break him down. It's going to be rough. Saquon's still a top 5 fantasy running back in my opinion, but boy, it's going to be harder for him to keep those numbers up, especially with no one to throw the damn ball to. New York is in a tough spot, again, it's just that's the way the cookie crumbles, and there's going to be more injuries to come as time goes on, especially with preseason. So just hope and pray that you don't draft someone who's going to tear an ACL and ruin your season, because it will fucking happen. It happened to some of the guys here before, and luckily it hasn't happened to me yet, but I'm going to knock on some wood right now. Fuck that. All right, up next we're going to talk about draft ADP per position. ADP. First up, Patrick Mahomes, number 1 QB off the board. Of course, NFL MVP, but we all know he is going to be drafted by none other than Mr. Michael Day. Yes, shocker, but that's where he's going. Pat Mahomes, first QB off the board, also the number 1 fantasy quarterback, and I agree with that completely. Next up, number 1 fantasy running back per ADP is Saquon Barkley. Now, I do feel like he is a top 5 running back, although I do not agree with him being number 1 overall, only because of the current situation in New York with the wide receivers. I think it does hurt his draft value, but I don't know if it's showing it on the boards yet with the with all the mock drafts. So we'll see if he drops any at all, but currently he's sitting at number 1. Next up, wide receiver, top dog, DeAndre Hopkins. He is the man. I do feel like he is in dead close relationship with a few other guys, but current ADP for him is the number 1 wide receiver off the board. Next up, Travis Kelce, number 1 tight end off the board. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think coming from the guy who had him last season, who helped me win my league, yeah, I mean, he's a killer pick. It's just, are you willing to take a tight end that early when there's a lot of other talent on the board? And for some reason, Greg Zuerlein is the number 1 kicker off the board, and the Bears is the number 1 defense off the board. And I do agree with the Bears. Khalil Mack's a monster. He's going to help you out, but at the same time, I'm not too sure, with so many defenses in streaming, I'm not too sure if taking a defense early is really a good strategy. But hey, everyone can manage their own fucking team however they want, and that's just the name of the game. But yep, Patrick Mahomes, QB1 off the board. Saquon Barkley, number 1 running back off the board. DeAndre Hopkins, number 1 wide receiver off the board. Travis Kelce, number 1 tight end. And then for some reason, old Greg Zuerlein off the board, number 1 kicker. And the Bears defense, number 1 off the board. That is the top ADP draft position per position for you guys who aren't paying attention, and hopefully you listen to this and get something out of it. Don't draft who I want to draft, motherfuckers. Well, I think that's it for the first ever episode of the Get Some Fantasy Football podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lovick, 2-time Bundy champion. And remember, always, giddy on up, giddy on out.